Hello and welcome to episode 23 of my long-running LEGO Retrospective series. Now, to say it's been a while since my last episode would be a bit of an understatement, but as the channel has seen an increase in interest in recent months, and I've had some pretty positive comments about the series, as well as some requests for games I haven't done yet, here I am. I'm back. I'm bringing it back finally. It's only taken me a year. Speaking of the channel, please do subscribe if you haven't already. I will be posting much more regularly moving forward, I promise. And I'm always open to feedback and ideas for future projects. Anyway, on to business. And it seems only fitting that the game bringing back the series is the first game I ever featured on the channel. Marvel's third entry in the LEGO franchise, LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2. So, on to the story. Kang the Conqueror is on a rampage across time and space, stealing civilizations from planets across history and transporting them to his very own world of worlds, Chronopolis. After witnessing Kang's attack on Xandar, the Guardians of the Galaxy arrive on Earth only to be transported along with modern-day Manhattan to the mysterious planet out of time. Now, the Guardians, along with the Avengers, Defenders, Inhumans, and a multiverse of other Marvel superheroes, must team up to navigate Chronopolis, take down the worst villains the galaxy has to throw at them, take down Kang, and return everyone to their proper place in the space-time continuum. It's a pretty epic story, even by Marvel Comics standards, let alone a LEGO game, and dramatically more ambitious than the two Marvel games that preceded it. When you have a veteran comic book writer on staff to co-write the story, it's no surprise it turned out as good as it is. Now, much like LEGO Marvel Superheroes 1, this unique story does delve deeply into the comics for inspiration. However, thanks to recent announcements, there is now a much deeper relationship with the MCU's future. For those of you that don't know, Marvel Studios have confirmed that Kang the Conqueror is set to be introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as part of the Ant-Man franchise, and some very eagle-eyed fans believe they even found an Easter egg in the quantum realm in Ant-Man 2 that shows Chronopolis. It's all very exciting news in general, if it's true, but these tidbits also mean that LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2 has so much more significance as the MCU moves forward, especially to those of you that aren't that familiar with the comics. So, as a super genius time traveller obsessed with conquering time itself, Kang is an incredibly complex character to examine in more detail. But I'm not going to do that here because this is a LEGO review. So let's have a look at the story from a LEGO perspective. Now, it's a great way for new fans to get introduced to Kang. It's a great first exposure. I mean, it's quite shallow in terms of his background, but we do get the basics. He's a megalomaniac, time traveller, a narcissist, has a very large sword spaceship, and rules a city called Chronopolis. His motivations aren't delved into in too much detail, other than he's a conqueror. But let's remember our target audience for these games. What this epically dynamic story does offer us is a plethora of Marvel Comics lore to explore, with 20 huge levels set in diverse and feature-rich environments, from medieval England to the Kree homeworld and everything in between. There is so much in this story for anyone. If you're a Marvel comic fanboy like me, fangirl as well, there are Easter eggs galore. If you're a casual fan who's mostly just watched the movies, maybe a couple of the cartoons, or are brand new to Marvel, there's so much to learn about this multiverse of madness. This is a celebration of Marvel in general, and it's fantastic. Interestingly, the story does one very crucial thing that the previous LEGO Marvel games didn't do. It sidelines Iron Man for a good portion of the story. Yep, the poster child of the MCU is nowhere to be seen, apart from an intro level very early on, a couple of cutscenes in the middle, and the last couple of levels. When you look at how much screen time the character gets in LEGO Marvel Superheroes, this is a refreshing change, I must say. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of Tony Stark, but Marvel has such an amazing array of characters that deserve so much more of the limelight. It's nice to kind of just put him to one side. Moving away from the story, the open world hub offers even more to enjoy with a massive area to explore. A true world of worlds which integrates all of Kang's captured civilizations seamlessly. You can quite literally take a stroll from modern New York to Nueva York, that's Spider-Man 2099's home, to Sakaar for a gladiator battle, to a post-apocalyptic Asgard, to Xandar, to ancient Egypt, stopping off at the Hydra Empire, the Wild West, Manhattan Noir and Wakanda along the way. Fancy a trip to the Inhumans home or a flight to nowhere? You can do that too. It's a truly beautiful thing to experience if you're a Marvel fan, and the transition from one environment to another is amazing, as the entire environment, basically the colour palette around you changes. It's awesome. Once you're done with the story, there are hundreds of things to keep you busy for hours upon hours in the open world. From the mundane fetch missions, to racing, to attack objectives, taking out Kang's tech. Trust me, 100% of this game is time consuming in a big way. And yet it never gets boring thanks to the aforementioned diversity in the open world environments. There is just so much to explore. Now, much like LEGO Marvel Superheroes 1, the character models take inspiration from both the comics and the movies, with Thor Ragnarok's gladiator outfits standing in for the more comic book Planet Hulks. Again, Iron Man takes a back seat here, ditching the full set of movie suits in favour of something a bit more comic book, and later you can unlock a Mark 47. Being a prominent part of the story, probably the biggest movie inspiration comes from the Guardians of the Galaxy, because when the first game came out, they hadn't made their way into the MCU, so we get the full MCU get up here. The roster is a decent size for a modern LEGO game anyway, with a number of characters returning from the first game, as well as new characters from the relatively unknown through to the utterly bizarre. The most interesting thing about the characters on offer, however, is the distinct lack of pretty much every single character that Fox owned the movie rights to at the time this game was released. Not sure if there is a connection, but no X-Men and no Fantastic Four definitely raises an eyebrow or two. It's a shame from a fan perspective, and trust me, there are loads of articles about it online, but it doesn't really impact on the wider enjoyment, as there is a smorgasbord of other heroes and villains to enjoy. Thankfully, the DLC that was released after the game offered quite a significant boost to the characters on offer, as well as a number of very cool additional levels. Now, these were inspired from the TV and the movies, from the Runaways to Infinity War, there's a Hulkbuster, and even the MCU's version of the Black Panther's best characters. There's definitely a lot of additional content to explore even once you've completed the core game, trust me. In terms of mechanics, there isn't anything that's mind-blowing added to the roster, but more just refined. Even so, it's a massive jump from the first LEGO Marvel Superheroes game, as innovations from games like LEGO Dimensions, LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens, and even LEGO Marvel's Avengers have been added to the game. Many of the powers and abilities on offer are tried and tested, some existing since the days of LEGO Batman, the video game, but many have been tweaked really well to work with the different characters. Miss Marvel is a great example, and probably one of the best characters in the game, with size-changing abilities that just feel natural. They're kind of seamless as you play through the story. We do get a tweaked hacking terminal mechanic first introduced in the Mission Impossible DLC on LEGO Dimensions as well, and there are some fresh powers thrown in, of course, with the most prominent being Star-Lord's gravity mine, a piece of tech which helped him grab the Infinity Stone in the opening scene to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. It's a really fun addition, and you manage to get your hands on it about 2 minutes into the first level. Probably the biggest upgrade this game launched was the customization functionality. LEGO DC Supervillains took the concept of custom characters to a whole new level by integrating them directly into the story, but everything you see in that game came from this one. Not to say that custom characters haven't been around since day one, but everything about the user interface and the options available just screams awesome here. Elsewhere, this game really does seem to shine when it comes to the combat side of things. I mean, we're not going to get the beautifully elegant Arkham game level combo combat from a LEGO game, but LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2 definitely demonstrates that this is an area that TT Games has continued to innovate. The animation during the fights is as diverse as it is stunning. The bouncing from one bad guy to another, it never feels clunky or slow, there's a flow to it. In addition, the idea of utilising multiple characters for a fight sequence seems to have been refined to almost perfection, with so many different combinations of characters offering unique combos when you hit the right button when you stood next to them. It's very awesome. The combat isn't perfect, of course, but it's definitely the best that LEGO Games have seen up until this point. One area that LEGO Marvel Super Heroes 2 does try to change the format is in the new competitive battle arena mode. It's basically 4-player local multiplayer mode. It's similar to what we get in the Ninjago movie game, but nowhere near as entertaining. It basically allows you and up to 3 of your friends to battle for points across a handful of environments, with the objectives being based on the Infinity Stones. In all honesty, I'm not a fan. I think one area TT Games really need to improve upon is the multiplayer, and this seems like a last minute gimmick rather than anyone actually dedicating large amounts of times to enjoy. Local multiplayer is such an antiquated approach to games these days, and pretty useless for the past year. Let's face it, we've all been stuck in our houses because of the pandemic, so unless you've got a very large family, you're not going to have been using it for the last year, that's for sure. Where's the online multiplayer option we're all crying out for, TT Games? Please bring it with the Skywalker Saga. Now, graphically, this is probably the best, most beautiful game that TT Games has ever made. There's no denying the high definition beauty of Chronopolis, with impressive draw distance and no frame rate issues to be found throughout. Similarly, the voice acting is vastly diverse, and whilst we don't get the character voices that MCU only fans will be familiar with, the actors do a fantastic job of giving these characters unique personalities. There's even a few lines thrown in there, you know, for the MCU fans, a few quotes here and there. You'll spot them if you played the game. Anyway, overall, 4 years later, and this is still an amazing game to play. It's very clear that LEGO DC Supervillains owes a lot to LEGO Marvel Super Heroes 2 in terms of pitch perfect mechanics, well, as close as we can get anyway, a large diverse open world, and the confidence to go completely mental with comic book source material and make it truly great. LEGO Marvel Super Heroes 2 is a shining example of how good TT Games can be at their absolute best, and how a truly engrossing comic book story can elevate a game above its peers. Seriously, if this story was made into a trilogy of MCU movies, I would be first in line to go and see them at the cinema, trust me. It's a really, really good comic book story, even, not just for a LEGO game, for a comic. This is a good story. Now, some will be disappointed with the characters that have been left off the roster, but trust me, there are so many awesome and weird and wonderful characters to enjoy. Plus, you've got one of the most diverse and beautiful open worlds in a LEGO game. I'm sure whatever issues you've got with any characters that are missing, you're going to get over it pretty quickly. Now, despite all of the positivity that I am throwing at this game, trust me, I love this game, but I just want to be clear, this game is not perfect. There are, the general innovations that have been made to the mechanics are great. They make this a much more stable game when you look at some of the other LEGO games that came out just a few years before, like the LEGO Ninjago video game. This is a much more stable, it's a much more refined, it's just a crisp finish. But of course it's not perfect. No LEGO game is. So I just want to be clear about that. But trust me, the glorious graphics, the amazing environment, the truly interesting story more than makes up for it. It's just a shame about the multiplayer side of things. Yes, you get the split screen, which is awesome for playing through the story, and I can't say a bad thing about that because it's always been awesome. But to have the ability to play online would just make it so much better. Anyway, if you are a Marvel fanboy or fangirl, you'll love the Easter eggs. If you're a casual Marvel fan, prepare to learn a lot about the comics. Trust me, there is so much thrown in here from the comics from all over the spectrum from the mainstream to the utterly bizarre, and it's great fun. Especially if you're learning some of this stuff for the first time. There were some characters, I mean, I'm a hardcore Marvel fan, and there were characters in this game that I wasn't too sure about and had to Google to find out a bit more information about. Either way, there is a massive amount of enjoyment for everyone. This is definitely one of the best TT games out there. Trust me, this is one of my favorites. If you've never played this game, go and play it. Go and pick it up. It's reasonably cheap. It's been out for 4 years. Go get it. I highly recommend it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you've played the game, let me know what your views on it are. They might not be as positive as mine. But as I've said in all the comments for all the other videos, these videos are my opinion, and I totally respect anyone that doesn't agree with them. But yeah, leave a comment, and please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As I said at the very beginning of the video, I will be posting a lot more moving forward, I promise you that. Anyway, for now though, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.